As a kid, I remember playing a game called Follow the Leader. Now, if you've never played the game, let me explain how it goes. Basically, there's one person designated as the leader. And what the leader does, everybody else does the exact same thing. So for example, if the leader jumps, everybody jumps. If the leader spins around, everybody spins around. If the leader sits down, they sit down. If the leader stands up, they stand up. If the leader starts waving their hand because they're singing their song and the butterflies fly away, if the leader starts nodding their head like yeah, shaking their hips like yeah, well, that's what you do. And in the event that a leader does something really crazy or gross like picks their nose, well, there's only one thing you can do. Find a new leader. And in the end, if you follow the leader, you get to be the leader. And if you've ever played this game, you understand that being the leader is the best part of the game. Now, what you do, everybody else does. How you act is how everybody else acts. The way you talk is how everybody else talks. You are in control of the game. You have the power, you have the influence, you are the leader. In the words of Dr. Tim Elmore, when you're a leader in life, you are like a thermostat. Now, what's a thermostat do? Well, in an office or in a building or in a home, a thermostat sets the temperature. Now in life, when someone's a thermostat, they set the way for how other people act, what people will buy, how they'll dress, and what kind of values the people will hold. Think about the world of fashion. Were you the first person to show up at your school in skinny jeans? Chances are you weren't. That means somebody set the temperature for you. Were you the first person to show up with a flat-bill baseball cap? Probably not. Once again, somebody set the temperature for you. Thermostats set the temperature. Thermostats are the leaders. Now, all of us have the potential to be a thermostat. In fact, some of you right now, you're listening to me and you know you're the thermostat. You set the temperature in your school, in your home, with your group of friends, with your family, at church, on your sports team. You have the influence. In fact, if you went to your school right now and you stood on the table and said, hey, we're going to a manure farm, people would stand up and say, I'm going with you and I'll buy a shirt. Why is that? It's because you set the temperature and they follow the leader. Now, I know some of you are thinking, okay, I'm not that popular. You may be thinking, I don't fit in. Well, don't kid yourself. Sociologists tell us that even the shyest person in the world will influence over 10,000 people in their lifetime. Even though you may not be a leader all the time, there will definitely be times when you will be the leader, when you will set the temperature. So my big question to you is this: what happens in those moments? What happens in those moments when you have the power, when you have the influence, when you set the temperature? In those moments when you have the power, will you use it to make a name for yourself or to make a difference in the world around you? And today, I want to set the temperature for what we desire for you here at Switch and what I believe God desires for you in your life. In order to do that, we're going to look at the story of Jesus and how he used his power, how he set the temperature for those around him. If you have a Bible, we're going to be in John chapter 13. And to set up the story, Jesus is about to eat dinner with his followers. Jesus is the leader in the story. He is in charge. He is the one who has the power. Jesus is the thermostat. Jesus knew that within a short period of time, maybe a matter of hours, that the entire story was going to change, that his followers were going to become the leaders, that his students were going to become the teachers. And with that in mind, Jesus wanted to show his followers how to be the leader.
Just before the Passover feast, Jesus knew that the time had come to leave this world to go to the Father. Having loved his dear companions, he continued to love them right to the end. It was supper time. The devil by now had Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, firmly in his grip, all set for the betrayal. Jesus knew that the Father had put him in complete charge of everything, that he came from God and was on his way back to God.
It's one thing to be captain of the team, or the leader of the band, top of the class, or even the president of the school. But Jesus was in charge of everything. He knew he had the power. He knew he was in control. He was the thermostat. And listen to what he did.
So he got up from the supper table, set aside his robe, and put on an apron. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the disciples, drying them with his apron.
I don't know what was happening at the table, but I bet the followers were all looking around at each other thinking to themselves, what is Jesus doing? Imagine being a waiter or waitress in a restaurant.
And one day, in walks one of your heroes. Maybe it's LeBron James, maybe it's Miley Cyrus, or maybe it's President Obama. And not only do they come to the restaurant, but they sit at your table. Most of us would be nervous. Why? Well, these are important people. They have power, they have influence. They're thermostats. Now, what would happen if they asked you to sit down at the table with them? And as soon as you sat down, they stood up and they took your serving tray and they took your apron and they asked you, "Can I take your order?" Let's be honest, that would be weird.
When he got to Simon Peter, Peter said, "Master, you wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You don't understand now what I'm doing, but it will be clear enough to you later." Peter persisted, "You're not going to wash my feet, ever."
And as weird as this may sound, if you really look at the story, this makes total sense. If LeBron James took the serving tray and asked what we wanted, we wouldn't let it happen. We would push back. "No thank you, Mr. James. You're a two-time NBA MVP. You're making millions of dollars. There's no way I could let you serve me. You are the one who should be served. You are the one who is important." In our story, that's what Peter is saying to Jesus. "Jesus, you are the one who's important. Jesus, get back up on your pedestal. There's no way I can let you serve me." But Jesus understood that serving is better than being served.
When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you."
And for those of us who have influence, whether a lot or a little, Jesus has set an example of how to use that influence. For those of you who are upperclassmen, whether in your high school or whether in your junior high, for those of you who have younger brothers or sisters or nieces or nephews or younger cousins, Jesus has set an example for you. If you are extremely smart or knowledgeable, or people look to you because you have a great mind, Jesus has set an example for us. If you are incredibly talented in something like sports or music or art or dance, Jesus has set an example for us. And most importantly, for those of us who call ourselves Christians or Christ followers, Jesus has set an example for us. You see, in that moment when all eyes were on him, when he had the power, when he had the influence, Jesus set the temperature. Jesus set the example, and he served others. Why is that? Because Jesus understood that serving is greater than being served. I know as we hear that, that may not make a lot of sense because our culture tells us a totally different message. Culture's gonna say, hey, being served is greater than serving. If you're not first, you're last. If you have the power, use it for yourself. Make a name for yourself. Yet Jesus came to this earth and he said something totally different. Listen to why he came to this earth.
"For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many."
Jesus didn't come to spectate and watch. Jesus didn't come to be served. Jesus didn't say, hey, what's in this for me? Jesus came to serve and to give. For those of you who claim to be Christians or Christ followers, let me ask you a really hard question. Are you really following Christ? Let me repeat that. If Jesus came to serve and to give, are you really following him? Are you serving and are you giving? Because if you're not, I would say you are not following Christ. And there may be several reasons for this. Maybe number one, God is not the leader of your life, and that's why you don't follow him. Or maybe number two is you just don't want to follow the leader. That's not what you want to do. And then there's number three, and that is you believe that you are greater than God. Don't get me wrong, I have the same pushback that you do. I'm doing good things. I want to do good things. I want to be a good person. Here's the problem though. God didn't make us to be good. He made us to be great.
"I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them."
At the end of the day, this is not about signing up somewhere to serve so that God will love you or love you more. I mean, God can't love you more than he loves you right now. When we are truly following Christ, when our heart matches up with his, we will want to serve. So the question is, what is keeping you from serving? The way we become great is by becoming a servant. Serving is greater than being served. Martin Luther King Jr. would put it this way.
Everyone can be great because everyone can serve.
Like I said earlier, you can make a name for yourself or you can make a difference in the world. Jesus' followers made a decision to make a difference in this world. And now 2,000 years later, this story and their story continues on.
At Switch, we want your story to go on. We want your life to make a difference. We want you to be great. And we believe that that happens when you serve. Here in a second, this video is going to stop. And when it does, we're going to ask you to take the next step in your relationship with Christ. For some of you, what that looks like is we're going to ask you to begin a relationship with the creator of the universe. For others, there's things in your life keeping you from being what God wants you to be. We're going to ask you to get rid of those things. For a large majority of you, the next step is leaving the realm of spectator who shows up each week to be served, to a person who steps in and says, I'm going to serve, I'm going to make a difference with my life. I believe at Switch that we have the spiritual leaders of the next generation. I believe that you will be the thermostat that will set the temperature for the rest of the world. I believe that you will become great. I believe you will do this by serving. The question is, will you follow the leader?